This is Peter Jarman. He is my accountant and has recently purchased an old Victorian schoolhouse which he intends to convert into a commercial office for his 30 members of staff. So today, I'm here to take a look around and to find out more about investing through a SSAS pension.
Come in, Justin.
Yeah, feels like going back to school.
It is.
Tell us about the building, Peter.
Well, this in 1850s was a Victorian two-classroom school. More recently, it's been a nursery, and we bought it off the local church.
And your plan is to turn it into an office?
Yeah, we've got to turn, as you can see, all of this into a nice modern office befitting of a firm of accountants. So here, this is going to be one of our working rooms. As you can see, I've got quite a lot to do in here. The idea here probably is we're going to have desks down the middle, probably a mezzanine floor at that end of the building.
Okay.
So that people can study above there or play table tennis or something.
That'd be great, yeah, a good staff area.
Yes, so a fair bit of work to do here. Those old windows need to be changed. We need to get, as you can feel, it's quite cold. We need to get a lot of insulation in here and sorting out the walls and bringing up the floors, sorting out the lighting. So
lovely big high ceilings, isn't it?
That's right, yeah. Yeah. It may stay like that, or I might have to bring the ceiling down.
Well, I guess you have to do what's best as a business as well, don't you? It's
That's
that combination.
Well, it's a combination of that and cost, of course.
Yes, yeah.
Into the second hall.
Wow, yeah, it's a big room, this one. So this would have been the actual main area?
This was the boys' classroom, and that was the girls' classroom.
Right.
Where we were was the infants.
Oh,
so
I
the
see.
3 classrooms here. This is going to be our main working area. We're going to have desks down the middle facing each other, new suspended ceiling in there, floors lifted up to allow for all the cabling and electrics underneath, the radiators sorted out, get the heating right.
Yeah.
And that's just about this room here.
And I guess by dropping the ceilings, raising the floors, as you said, you can run all the cables, which makes life easier to the desks. Also, I guess it makes it a more efficient building, more like a commercial office then, isn't it?
Well, it makes it much, much easier for cabling. It also means we can get a bit of insulation above and below.
Why did you buy a premises for your business?
I bought this with what's called a small self-administered pension scheme. Our business needed new premises. The best way to buy premises, if you've got your own company in the first place, generally is to buy that premises inside a pension fund rather than to buy it inside a company or buy it in your own name. The advantage of that is that you can use pension money. So if you've saved up pension in your SIPP from working and that sort of thing, you can use that money, convert it into cash and use it as either the deposit or in our case, the whole cost of the building. I'll explain a bit more about the building. Obviously, 2 classrooms and the infants classroom here, all commercial. On the far end is a 2-bedroom cottage that used to be the headmistress's cottage. If you have a small self-administered pension scheme, you can buy commercial property in there, but you can't buy residential property. So we bought the whole lot off the church and split the ownership, split the title, so that my daughter owns the cottage. We can't have that in the small self-administered pension scheme, but the rest of the commercial can be put inside the small self-administered scheme.
And that bit can't because it's residential?
Because it's residential, it could never go in there.
So this back part here is leading through to...
These are all toilets.
Yep.
I won't introduce you to all of those, but a selection of toilets and wet rooms and things.
Okay.
And then we're through to
the kitchen area.
The kitchen area.
Which is great. I mean, not much to do in here, I guess, is there, apart from a tidy up?
A bit of a tidy up. I think you suggested we had a bar here, didn't you? So maybe some beer on tap there.
That would be great. I think if I worked with you, Peter, I'd think, right, Friday afternoon, can we get the beer going?
Right. So. We've got out the back there is the ability to build one more room out here. We may decide take all this down and build another room out of the back there to give a bit more office working space.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So that would be on a slightly different level to in there, would it? Or would it come
we'll
out
get
the same?
It to be the same level. I think we'll get it to be the same level.
So you could, if you wanted to grow the team further.
So if we had to grow, needed another 10 people probably in there.
It's good potential, and you're just kind of infilling the space that's there already.
That's right, yeah.
So for yourself, obviously the plan, you currently have a building that you're renting 4-star. The plan is obviously to A, utilise the pension, but B, now you can, I guess now your business is paying your own investment portfolio, is that right?
Yeah. So the pension fund owns the business, and we'll do it up, and then we'll rent it to our company, our accountancy business. The accountancy business will pay the pension fund rent, get tax relief on that rent, and the pension fund will receive that rental income as investment income, and fortunately not have to pay any tax on the rental income it receives.
Brilliant. And why is that? Why doesn't it have to pay tax?
Well, pension funds are completely outside of tax. So when your money's in a pension fund, when your money, for example, in your SIPP is invested in stocks and shares, you don't have to pay any more tax, no matter whether you make gains on those shares or you get dividends. You don't pay any more tax. Exactly the same with a small self-administered pension scheme. That if we sell this building in the future for more than we bought it for, we won't pay any tax on that increase in value, and we won't pay any tax on the rental income that we receive year on year from the property either.
And as you mentioned, there is potentially a loft and a cellar, but you've not found them yet.
Well, I can see the windows for the loft, but I can't find my way in, and I don't know where the cellar is.
I'm sure you'll find them one day.
This room here will, in 6 to 9 months' time, be a very nice interview room to greet you when you come in as a client.
Yeah. So either a client or an interview room for new staff, I guess.
New staff, yeah. Mainly this will be where we see the clients.
Got you. No, sure. Well, fantastic room for it. And I think a good time actually to maybe share figures, if you don't mind. Yeah. So you told me initially agreed to buy this and the cottage, because they're combined at 700,000.
That's right. Back in February, we agreed 700,000 for the two. Obviously, between February and October, the market changed quite a lot.
Yes.
And so we went back to the purchasers. Other things became available that were relatively attractive. We went back to the sellers and offered 600, agreed on 610,000.
Okay.
So between February and October, down here there's about a £90,000 reduction in value across that period of time.
Quite incredible. So you just went back with that 600,000 and they counter offered at 610?
Yeah, 610, and we eventually agreed on that. There were a lot of reasons for that, because as you know, the cost of building materials has gone up drastically. I'm planning on a £200,000 spend here. Originally I was planning on that being about 150. So a lot of things have changed in that time. The cost of money as well obviously has gone up a lot.
So when you bought that, obviously through your pension company, you're then going to invest potentially 200,000 in the refurbishment. Will you then do any kind of refinancing, or will you just leave it as it is?
Probably we won't. The small self-administered scheme is myself and my wife's pension. So you can combine pensions together in a small self-administered scheme. You can have up to 11 members. So it is only the two of us at the moment. So we put our pension money that we've saved in SIPPs into this, so that we could actually buy the property.
Okay. Yeah. You won't necessarily do like a refinance?
I doubt we'll refinance it. We'll use funds from stocks and shares that we've got in pension already, rather than refinance it. Yeah. Unless I'm very wrong with the rebuild cost.
No. I just wondered more, because obviously with residential properties, particularly with what a lot of my clients do when we source some stuff, is you look to buy something under market value, which this could be deemed as. You then obviously invest money into it to bring it up to modern standards. And then you refinance it to try and get some of your money back and go and do it again. I didn't know if there was any element of that.
Well, to be fair, I'm an accountant, not a property developer. So I mean, we're buying this so that we can have our business here.
Yes.
I think perhaps if I was actually into property developing as such, then we might look at buying more commercial property. But this is really going to be a one-off inside.
So it's not your first thought to go refinance.
It's not to go and then go and buy a whole load more commercial property. No.
Yeah. If someone's sitting there and they have a pension, either through I'm sure it's probably different, but through working and having a pension through their career, or whether it's through their own business and they've set up a SIPP or something, is that quite an easy transaction or transition, I guess, over to a SSAS?
It's not too difficult, but you do have to have your own trading company in the first place. You have to have a sponsoring company. So if you were just employed, it would be very difficult to set up a SSAS. But if you are self-employed or working through your own company, then you can use that company as the sponsoring employer for the SSAS. It needs a sponsoring employer. And then you can set up this pension scheme. And the SSAS pension is really the same as your SIPP pension, except it can do an awful lot more. It can buy property, for example. It can borrow within the pension fund. So if you had, let's say you had £100,000 in your SSAS pension, you'd be able to borrow another £50,000 to be able to buy a property for 150. You can borrow 50% of the value. You can actually lend the funds that are in the SSAS back to your trading company in certain circumstances. So there's a lot more flexibility in a SSAS. And the other big difference is when you're investing into SIPPs, you are restricted by the pension allowance that you're given each year. £60,000 at the moment is the most you can put into your pension in 1 year, unless you use carryback. But within a SSAS, you're not restricted by that £60,000 limit. You can put in £500,000 if you like, or whatever you like.
So let's take myself as an example. If I was doing incredibly well, hopefully in the future I do, and would you recommend someone like myself to go into or down the route of opening a SSAS now, or would you keep investing into the SIPP and then do a transition later on?
Yeah, you would only open it when you need it. But let's say we take your sourcing company. It starts to build up money and you want to buy an office to operate from, or any commercial building really. You're then going to do a pension contribution from your sourcing company into your small self-administered scheme, into your SSAS. That will put money into the SSAS, and with that money, maybe then you'll go off and take the money that you've got in your SIPP from when you were working before. You'll take that money and transfer that into your SSAS as well. So now you've got the contributions from the company you put in, plus any other pension money you had in the past. You'll bring all of that together in the SSAS and then use that to perhaps go and buy a building. So this is the headmistress's cottage.
Right, yeah.
She used to come into school through that little passageway there.
And that links back to that big room that we saw. Well, I mean, that is the definition of, living at work, isn't it? Or no days off. Yeah, really nice housing around here, actually, isn't it? Got a Miller and Carter steakhouse.
You're all right.
That's nice and local. Did you think with this it had been rented previously?
It had been rented, yeah. The church rented this out to tenants, so it's been on a short-term tenancy for the last couple of years.
Got you, yeah.
So it's not too bad condition.
No, it's not, is it?
We'll do a bit of repainting, sorting out a bit of damp over there.
Yes, yeah. I mean, it's very typical with this sort of age of house, isn't it? You're always going to have a bit to tackle like that.
That's right, yeah.
But generally speaking, it doesn't smell like, mould or damp.
No, there's a bit of damp there, but it's nothing too bad here. Sitting room.
So yeah, it's a bit like, an unusual layout, but a 2 up, 2 down really, isn't it? A couple of reception rooms and a kitchen and a couple of bedrooms,
and a couple
I'm
of bedrooms
guessing.
Upstairs and a bathroom, and a little kitchen.
Yeah, which you're saying actually is, it's obviously been done in recent years, hasn't it?
You say you do yours pretty similar to this?
Yeah, not too dissimilar. Like, this is a classic sort of shaker style. It's probably a Howden's job, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I think it is Howden's.
Yeah.
I saw the,
yeah, they normally last quite a while and they're not too badly priced. I either use like Howden's, Magnet, or there's a company called DIY Kitchens.
We just put in downlights in here.
Oh yeah.
But the first thing we discovered was the ceilings are lava.
Oh, lava plaster.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
So if you made some holes for downlights, they won't stay as round holes. So we got this far and then are going to board it.
Got you, because otherwise it just all falls and crumbles away, doesn't it?
That's right, yeah, it's going to be boarded, but that's going to give us a chance to put a bit of insulation up there as well.
Yeah, well, you've got plenty of height on the ceiling to do that, haven't you?
So this was task number one and problem
Yeah.
number one.
There'll be a string of more, I'm sure, but this is a good size. This is a nice little suite actually, and the tiling's been done well.
Yeah, it's not too bad, and for some reason we've got I think, a washing machine or something in there.
Oh, right, yeah. Well, it's a good space for it.
Yeah.
And then the second bedroom with the same lighting-ish
same sort of thing going on. Yeah.
What I do currently is, of course, I will take some of the earnings from my company, and every now and then I might loan it to one of my buy-to-let investment companies. And obviously, we can go into the better routes to do that. But if you were to compare it like for like with me taking that money and putting it into a pension now, is there a better option? You know, should I take that money and invest into a SIPP? Should I take that money and put it into my investment company? I know roundabout they're doing the same thing, but which is the better route?
I mean, the pension is always going to be tax-free while it's being invested. So if you took, let's say you had £100,000 and you wanted to put that into, we'll have to talk about commercial property here, but you wanted to put that into a commercial property that you owned in one of your companies, then that rent you get from that commercial property, you'll have to pay tax on. You'll pay corporate rates of tax, so 19 to 25%. On top of that, when you finally come to sell that commercial property, you will have to pay tax, corporation tax again, at the difference between what you bought it for and what you sold it for. So inside a company, you are going to have to pay tax on the income and the capital appreciation. If you were doing that same transaction inside a pension scheme, first of all, the contributions that you put into the pension will be given tax relief. And then inside the pension, you won't have to pay tax on the rental income. And you won't have to pay tax on the difference between what you buy it for and you sell it for, the capital appreciation. So if you took the two and you had exactly the same investment and you did one inside a pension versus one inside a company,
yes,
inevitably you're going to end up with more cash inside the pension.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, I'm getting my head around that now.
Yeah. Now, I'll tell you the downside of the pension, if you like. It grows completely tax-free. So the rental income comes in tax-free, the capital appreciation is tax-free. You get taxed when you take your money out of your pension scheme. So eventually, you've got to be 55, or by the time you're there, 57, or maybe 65 by the time you're there. But there'll be a time when you're allowed to take your money out of your pension scheme.
Yeah.
And then at that stage, under the current rules, you can take out 25% of the fund, whatever it's grown to, tax-free, and the other 75%, as you take it out, you'll have to pay tax at whatever rate of tax you're paying at that stage.
And quite often people like to know the situation with like builders and trades, and obviously you've, I guess, embarked on a very sizable project when maybe this isn't your day-to-day thing, working with builders, doing developments, as you said. So what are your plans? Like, how are you going after one main contractor? Are you working with individual trades?
I'm probably going to work with individual trades. I have had project managers manage work for me at home. And I've always found that in the end, I've butted in and project managed it. So I think I might be better off project managing this. My aim is to find, I think I was saying to you earlier, I would like to find a handyman that wants to work, let's say 3 days a week for the next 6 to 9 months.
Yes.
And we'll give him various jobs as we work out what needs to be done. But obviously we're bringing in plumbers, electricians, chippies for things that are more skilled.
Yeah.
But there's lots of jobs that can just get done by, well, not necessarily myself, but the handyman under my instruction.
What about the roof?
The roof was actually a relatively pleasant surprise in that I was preparing for the worst, and it's quite a big roof to do clay tiles, but I had a roofer come up and have a look. The tiles were in pretty good condition. You know, it's going to be another 50 years, so they're going to outlast me. Life in those. There's always going to be the problem that they're all nailed in, and those nails rust. So every year we're bound to get a few of those clay tiles or
slipping down.
But it'll just be an ongoing yearly maintenance by the roofer to put those back in.
Yeah, which I'm guessing is considerably cheaper than replacing everything.
Yeah, it didn't replace the whole lot. It'd be quite a lot. I mean, I think we could make it a lot more water protective and better insulated by doing the lot.
Yeah.
But it probably isn't worthwhile.
I'd like to move into talking about your business a bit more as well. So your accountancy practice, PJCO, hopefully people watching this either use your services or are about to. I've obviously been a customer of yours for many years now, and I guess the main thing for me that interests me is how long have you been running it? What's the story there?
Well, it's been going for 33 years. 33 years ago, I was working for one of the sort of mid-tier firms of accountants, quite a large firm, hundreds of employees, and I just had some children and couldn't bear the fact that I had to work 24 hours a day for that sort of firm. So I set up on my own, thought it was going to be easier, but instead I worked 24 hours a day for myself. The only difference was the boss was a lunatic. So we started 33 years ago. In the first place, I had no plans to do what we've become. Basically now there's about 30 of us, 5 partners and 30 staff, and that wasn't necessarily my plan when I started, but gradually as I got better at business, I worked out how you could turn an accountancy business into a not necessarily self-sufficient, but more self-sufficient, so that I don't have to do everything.
Yes.
And so certainly, if it's any of the people listening are clients of ours, that most likely they'll be dealing with one of our team who we train up.
Like I do, yeah, exactly. And they're very efficient. In terms of, I guess, your daily tasks now, what does that look like?
My daily tasks are dealing with people, dealing with staff. Finding new clients is, I enjoy that part, but actually going out and talking to new clients, showing them what we can do and seeing if they're interested in taking up our services, that's a fair bit of my day as well. But it's dealing with the staff, dealing with queries that are actually out of the normal, that we've got a relatively young workforce. They haven't come across lots of things that I may have come across before. It's dealing with those sorts of things and just helping them look after those clients as best we can.
I guess adapting to the ever-changing accounting landscape.
That's right, yeah.
Well,
new
probably.
budget every year,
Yeah.
changes all the time. But fortunately, as I say, I've got a really good workforce that are well trained, all ACCA accountants, or training towards that. So they know those rules better than me now.
So about 30 of them, 5 partners. How do you find it managing people?
It's something you have to learn. Didn't necessarily come naturally to me. When I first set up, I thought I could work on my own. I just needed 5 clients, one for a Monday, one for a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday and Friday, and that would be fine. That wasn't fine. I managed to do that, but it wasn't fine when 2 of them sold and another one went bust. I only had 2 days work, so it wasn't a very good business plan, that one.
Right.
A much better plan was to have a lot of clients, but then the difficulty with that is you can't deal with them all yourself.
Yep.
But you weren't then affected by one client doing badly or well. But in doing that, I had to learn how to, I suppose, manage people in the first place and then lead people a bit later on. And those two aren't things that naturally you learn at school or naturally you learn when you do your accountancy exams.
No, of course not.
So a lot of book reading,
Yeah.
a lot of that sort of thing to work out how to do it.
I'd say that's, for me, it's been one of the biggest learning curves as well, is trying to understand people a bit more, because everyone has something different that ticks for each person. Someone it's money, someone it's time off, someone it's recognition, so leading and managing is a hard skill to learn, I think.
That's right, yeah. It comes down to a lot of it is personal plans for certainly for our staff. We work very hard on working out what their personal plan is, and how that fits into PJCO. So it's what do you want to do in the next 3 years? And often it's I want to get qualified and I want to buy a house. Right. I could say that comes up every time.
Is it? Yeah.
I want to get qualified. I want to buy a house. Occasionally, I want to have children and get married.
Yeah.
But the other two come up all the time, and it's us working towards making that possible.
Yeah, it's great that you then, I guess, cater for that and you ask them that question. How many clients have you got?
About 1,000, I suppose. Yeah,
1,000?
depends how you
Wow.
calculate it, but about
Yeah.
1,000. Yeah.
That's brilliant. And majority of them are like monthly retainers?
Yeah. Most people will pay monthly retainers. Some of the ones where we just do tax returns, they might pay once a year.
Yeah.
And some of the clients that will have been with me for an awful long time might pay quarterly or something like that. But anyone that's coming on today, if you came along and saw us, you'll get a quote telling you exactly what it'll cost. You'll know in advance what that is and just pay by monthly direct debit.
Well, thanks for having us today. Before we go anywhere, I think for anyone watching who's maybe a little bit older than myself, maybe a bit more progressed in their career or with their business, what have you, if someone is thinking about doing what you've done here, what steps would you recommend to them in order to understand if they've got enough money, how they can open a SSAS, and what steps they take?
Yeah, so I think in the first place, you've got to have your trading business and I would say in 90% of the cases, you need somewhere to operate from. So you need your factory, your warehouse, your offices. You want to buy those things, you don't want to rent anymore. And if that's your desire, then you start to think about how can you do that. That, for me, and in most cases, I would say with most business owners, the route to do that is to buy the building inside a pension fund.
Right.
To buy a commercial property inside a pension fund, you ideally need a small self-administered pension scheme. So starting point is, do you want a commercial property to operate from?
Yeah.
If you've got that, then it's how do you go about setting all of this up. That's going to be a combination of setting up a small self-administered pension scheme. If you go to your accountant, ask them if they know anything about it. If not, go to someone that does understand that. There are specific firms that set up these small self-administered schemes, get them registered with HMRC as proper pension funds. And then you have pension administrators help you administer that scheme going forwards.
Right.
So what you've got to bear in mind is you will have ongoing costs of running a small self-administered pension scheme, pretty much like you have ongoing costs of running a company. You'll have the same sort of thing with a small self-administered scheme, but it's a really good place if you've got that desire to have property to occupy for your trading business. It's a really good place to start to see whether that's the right way of owning that property, and in most cases it will be.
Brilliant. So by the sounds of it, there's no real point in going out and opening one until you're absolutely ready and sure it's the right thing to do because of the ongoing costs. Because although you have all those tax benefits, you've got to think about, well, actually there's a running cost to it. So then probably best to wait until you're absolutely ready. For example, no point in me going to set one up. I'm better to build the business, build up more funds in order to do that, I guess, in the future.
Yeah, I mean, in most cases, you're only ever going to do this when you've got the building. Very occasionally, you've got a very profitable company. You want to put into your pension more than the £60,000 a year you're allowed to put in as an individual.
Right.
And then sometimes you'll decide you're going to put in a big lump into a small self-administered scheme this year, next year and the year afterwards.
Right.
So you could go and buy yourself a whacking great office building or a great big warehouse. You might start the process off just by putting cash in to start with.
Got you. So like you said earlier, if you're suddenly dumping like 500,000,
if you're making £1 million a year, then you might be thinking of putting £500,000 into your pension and getting tax relief on that £500,000.
Well, I've got some work to do before that happens.
Okay.
But no, thanks very much for letting us have a look round and sharing everything about it. I think it's been really useful. So once again, thanks for coming on the channel, Peter.
Good. Cheers, Justin.
No worries, pleasure.